you very much for your remarks. We do have a time for a few questions. I think I'm going to see some of the Sligo questions perhaps come up, but we also have people with mics, so if anyone would like to make comments. I see Debbie down in the front here. Yeah.
Good morning. MP Oliphant, thank you for your keynote. It's good to have you back in Ottawa. Debbie Douglas from OCASI, the Ontario Council of Agencies Serving Immigrants. Thank you for your comments about migrant workers and pathways to citizenship. Can't tell you how refreshing it is to hear someone in government speaking like that. As a sector, we've absolutely been advocating for that. We believe that migrant workers play an important role in Canada, both socially as well as economically. And we are hoping that before the end of the mandate of this government, we will see some policies put in place to begin to have pathways to permanent residency for those who want to stay. I am concerned, though, about your comment that there may not be any additional funds for settlement given the increase in levels. One of the commitments we had from Minister Hassan as he made the announcement was that money will follow increase in levels. And can you further clarify what it is that you meant about the $1 billion not increasing?
Just very clearly, it's not my job to tell you you're going to get more money, because I'm not in government, I'm in Parliament. And so I always want to be very cautious because I tend to be ambitious in this area. I will be advocating for more money, but I will leave it to the minister to decide how much money will be going to settlement, and frankly the cabinet. That's part of a budgetary process that I'm not a part of. And so I'm always very cautious because I have very grandiose plans. I work very closely with Thorncliffe Neighbourhood Office in my own community. I was there yesterday, and the needs are huge. I will be a personal advocate for that. Don't take it me saying that there won't be more money, just say, I can't tell you there's going to be more money.
Thanks for that clarification.
Thank you. I'm going to take some questions from Sligo. Getting used to this, it's interesting. There was a question around I'm going to read this. Chief, we are near a reserve that does not have reliable access to drinking water. How do I start the conversation with the chiefs about engaging them as partners in our work?
Well, that's not one that's easy to start with, is it? Is this from a perspective of pathways to prosperity? I'm assuming so. So before I get to that, let me just say that in the discussion of immigration in Canada, there is a strong need to have a role from the Indigenous people for a number of reasons. One, they have to have an understanding of what's going on with the immigration society, so they have the true facts of how it's unfolding. So they don't feel as if they're being marginalized because of the addition of new people into the country. Two, because of the history of this country, the Indigenous people have a strong role to play in regards to welcoming new citizens and making them feel like they're home. So it's very important that the Indigenous people have a voice in the immigration process and policy, and I would be very interested in working towards that. As far as how to engage the chiefs about the access to drinking water, that's an interesting question. I've been struggling with that myself on a number of different times. See, so the Mississaugas of the credit, in this area everybody knows us, and everybody usually knows who the Six Nations are. Two of them very arguably well-to-do in regards to Canadian society. See, our First Nations don't even have completed water systems in either one of our communities. So the struggle that we have throughout on this province and probably other provinces is that there's only a certain amount of money that is allocated to go towards drinking water for First Nations, and how do we do that? So in the past, I've contacted private business. I've contacted some of these other companies who are interested in working with the First Nations for solutions. So my suggestion would be to, and it's for me, I tell people they can contact me directly and speak to me and talk to me, and we can figure out where we go from there. For others, it might be a more process of identifying who in the First Nation has responsibility for drinking water and making that point of contact. As I said, though, for myself, you just have to pick up the phone and call me, and we could talk about how we would go forward and how we could relate together. I just think that the answer is not, and don't get me wrong, I certainly believe the Canadian government owes a duty of fiduciary obligation to the Indigenous people. But we're not going to answer all the issues through the government process. It's going to require us to be creative. It's going to require us to partner. It's going to require us to work with new citizens, because I've met so many now, and they are so anxious to help. They sometimes even want to get ahead of me and run ahead and help me. But I said, no, we have to do this together, and we have to work together. So I think an open dialogue and a conversation is a great way to start.
Thank you. There's a question for Mr. Oliphant about, can you talk more about which industry sectors the government is working closely with about the quick work permit turnarounds?
So the work permit exemptions, and I'm going to tell you, I just was looking this up as I saw the question, because I am certainly not an expert in immigration processes. It tends to be the policies I'm looking at. These are for workers who are managerial or professional, so-called type 0 or level A, skill level A, skill type 0, or O, I guess that is. I hope there's not zero skill. Skill type O or skill type A, they're professionals, and they're particularly looking at management or professionals coming into any sector that are needed in industry. Obviously, innovation sectors are something we're focusing on, but that isn't explicitly listed in here. Also, researchers coming to perform research at the invitation of a publicly funded degree granting Canadian post-secondary institution or affiliated research institution. So they're looking at professionals, managers, and researchers as the three categories.
Thank you. I think we have time for just one more question. Is there another question from the floor? Oh, okay, sorry, it's very bright, I can't see, but there we are.
Hi, I'm Setara Gohari from Queen's University, and I'm an immigrant to Canada. And when I hear these kind of
A little
talks,
closer on the
always,
microphone, sorry.
Sorry. So when I'm an immigrant to Canada myself, so when I hear such strong speeches, I always feel even more proud of becoming a Canadian citizen. But as a researcher, I wanted to ask, with all these talks about innovation, are we thinking about allocating more money and funds for research?
More money into?
Into research.
Broadly speaking, on research on immigration? I have no idea. I think everyone in the room knows that in the last 2 years, the government has been attempting to find ways to bump up the federal government's role in research, both scientific research and social sciences, and finding ways to encourage that. I think that we have tried to state that we want to be an evidence-based government, and as part of an evidence-based government, we would want to fund research. My own personal concern, again, is that the so-called STEM areas do seem to take precedence in sort of current parlance about research, and I am there to always remind people that the arts and social sciences are extremely important to fund research because they're about the quality of life as well. And so that is something I am constantly advocating, that it's not STEM, it's STEAM, and that the arts and social sciences are and humanities are extremely important to be funded. Plus, I live with a researcher.
Thank you. So please join me in thanking our two guests this morning. Oh, sorry. Not quite
Je
yet.
peux reprendre juste un petit mot en français. Et il y a des questions en français aussi. Et je pense que c'est une question... où est la question?
Premier national.
Mais maintenant, c'est le 3, mais c'est l'autre. Que peut faire le Parlement pour l'immigration francophone correspond aux politiques des bilinguismes et de soutien aux communautés de langue officielle. C'est absolument important d'avoir un système pour améliorer et pour effect en anglais quelque chose pour les communautés en Ontario ou en Nouveau-Brunswick, pour les communautés linguistiques minoritaires, et aussi au Québec, dans une communauté avec la majorité francophone. Je pense qu'on peut regarder le rapport pour l'immigration sur le Canada atlantique, et en Nouveau-Brunswick, il y a une opportunité d'avoir les immigrants qui parlent français ou qui peuvent apprendre le français. C'est absolument une initiative du gouvernement maintenant.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll do this. Please join me in thanking our first speakers this morning. Thank you very much.